well, what's the reaction? It's more like it just doesn't register. Very little registers. Like I don't really. I watch a lot of platforms. You know, like on YouTube channels and Facebook, just different things.
Yeah.
But there's not a real keen interest in the topics or what they're talking about. It's more of seeing how they're doing stuff and what they're talking about. But there's a few different people or groups or platforms that I kind of like keep tabs on because they say stuff that resonates, and yours is one of them. I'm not going to sit here and say I listen to all, like, the whole 20 minutes or 25 minutes because I don't even do that. I certainly don't watch my own stuff. And but I pick up things. I don't know that we have to actually read the whole book, so to speak, anymore. I think we can pick the book up.
Frequency.
Yeah. So, but there's been some information that you've had. Well, since I told you, I think I saw you do a video last year, and I said, "Hey, you should keep doing these." And I said, turn your mic up, and of course, I would say things and then not get back because that's usually what happens. But there's stuff in your intel that I see in other people's intels, like Morgan's, even like I see overlap.
Yeah.
Other ladies out there, and it's just they're all different, and yours is yours is very galactic. To me, it is. To me, it's very galactic.
It is.
Yeah. Was it you the other day that was saying? Yeah, it was you. It was on a video, and you were saying that, I guess I'll put it in my own words, that your galactic human or something turned on.
Yeah.
And it was like the way you described it, and I guess you could replace the word galactic with higher self or with any type of aspect coming in, but the way you described it was kind of like, and we can go back to it, but kind of like, okay, this just happened. I'm in this body and it's okay. Like, I'm okay. I landed here. And it just kind of captured to me how I felt when I saw other people doing. I'm going to say this was like a week to 10 days ago. But so another thing that I find that resonates with what you deliver is you have an openness to where you don't rule anything out. You're just totally open. And that's not something that you see a lot. Not because it's like a slight or a judgment of inferiority about anyone, because I put myself in the same category. I just think it's not an easy place. We spend so much time going, I'm okay. I'm balanced. Oh, I got this shit figured out. But the way you and people like you talk about it, because I don't think there's 100%. I don't think you can get to that perfection. The perfection is in the imperfection, right? But there's people like yourself that actually go, this is what I know. I don't have this figured out, but here I'm to share this with you, basically.
So. Yeah, and I think that's so important because, I mean, how could I know everything? Like the end all be all truth. Like there's no way. Yes, I channel information, but it's still one perspective. It's still from a dimension. It's still So I think it's so important to really to stay open, and I share what I receive and what I'm guided to share. But I mean, I think it's really important as well, especially in the time we are in now, that people are coming back to their own empowerment.
Yeah,
and I agree. I'm really aware of that when I share channeled messages as well, because it's sort of a situation where it's very easy that people are like, oh, but this was channeled and this was, and yes, it was, but it's always come back to your own resonance. Always follow, like always, you can search for information and you can hear things, and if it resonates, use it, but don't don't try to make your life fit into something we hear,
Yeah.
but take what you hear, and if it makes sense with what you are experiencing and you can gain clarity and awareness of it, that's great. But never try to
Yeah, it's a good time to be humble. And I'm a big believer that anything we want, like, to be more, to have more humility, or to be more aware of our blind spots, our unconscious programming, anything that we want, if we have the desire for it and we convey that desire to the universe, it comes to us. So but I look at what's going on now. See, somebody was on, it was Franco. Franco was on yesterday. And of course, we've had many, many, many conversations with him, and I spent some time with Sedona with him, which was very interesting. But he was saying that, okay, so he works with, I guess you would call, he has recall of the discussions that occur and the votes or the decisions that we make as a collective before they actually happen, but like just real time almost, and so we were talking about like what's going on right now, like what's been happening, let's say since 2012, and he's got some of the particulars on it, like a few other people do, like that, there was supposed to actually happen 5, 6, 7 years ago. What's happening now? We weren't ready, things like that. And one of the things that he was saying is that the team up there, us included, has intervened in a sense of accelerating the timeline based on our efforts and for whatever reason. And that one of the conversations was that if it had been left to us, even like now, like from this point forward, it would take about 200 years for us to get to where we'll be in the next year and a half.
Yeah.
And so if you think about the amount of intel, of growth, of physical change, carbon to light body, of all the things that's condensed in that 200 years that's happened in a year and a half, I don't even understand how the hell we can be having a concept of anything, because it would only seem to me, and I think it's been this way, it's moving faster and faster and faster and faster. You don't even have time to go, this is what's going on, or this is what's going to happen, or this is what this means, because by the time you've spit that stuff out, it's already changed again, so anyway.
Yeah, or even having a concept that you have time to process something. It's just like, go.
Yeah.
And I feel like since February, it's been super intense. And the last 2 weeks have been like two of the most powerful weeks in my life so far.
Yeah.
It's like there's so much happening, and it's like it's getting more and more crazy, but it feels less and less crazy. It feels more natural.
Mm-hmm. It's both at the same time. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I wake up this morning and I'm going, I'm not saying I don't want to be here, but I'm like, what the hell's going on? And thank God I have shows scheduled, because that's kind of grounding. And then on the other side of it, I open Facebook to send, like you the link and just do a couple of things. And I see a couple of posts of what's going on and what's going to happen. And I'm like, I don't want to look at that. Like, in other words, I don't know, but I don't think anybody knows what the hell they're talking about. I think it's so
and
far
I think
beyond,
it's a bit, the human mind that wants to understand and wants to know what's coming in order to be prepared, in order to feel some sort of safety and some sort of control.
Yeah.
But it's really like it's a bit of a paradox, right? Because the more we surrender and the more we allow, like that's really the space we are being asked to be in.
Yeah.
And the more we can stay in that and actually slow down, the faster we shift. So it's not like run faster and you will get there faster. It's like slow down more, and then you will actually surrender into and stay in that allowance. And so the shifts will happen quicker, and you will feel that spark of inspiration when it comes, because that's, taking like empowered surrender. Really, it's not like giving up and lying down and like, I don't know anymore. But it's staying in that sovereignty.
Yeah.
And acting on inspiration, and allow and surrender, and just as much as we can stay present, because we don't know what's coming.
I think you just summed it up with those 4 things, So you were I don't remember the other 3 because we're in the transition, but the one about accepting and surrender. I agree with all 4 of those things, but whatever the word is for accept and surrender is way beyond accept and surrender. And I think the other thing that kind of, in my opinion, that helps best to understand it by making me understand I don't understand it at all is that word paradox. Because, I came to it 10 years ago. I was being shown how everything was a paradox. What you think is up is down. And it's taken on a new meaning like everything else. And I saw a quote the other day. It was talking about, I wish I had the words because I'd never seen anybody put it this way, but it's like, the paradox itself, this is what it said. The paradox itself is literally the 0 point. So in other words, the polarities they're not just the same. They're actually both true. And the paradox is they both live simultaneously as one truth. So it's beyond human comprehension. So this is what I'm saying is like what I get through some people's work, some of it like yourself, is that we're actually going into this space in between breaths where I don't know anything. Turn it off, whatever it is, and it's just this weird place that we're kind of getting assimilated with.
It is, and it's so like it feels so natural, but it's like the things like I'm experiencing now are so like absurd, like but it feels so much more natural than it has done before, because it's less of a human analytical mind coming in, because it feels like it's more grounded in the body. There's more embodiment, and so there's less of it feels less as a polarity within myself, what I experience and what I see and what happens in me. But it has to do, what I've been shown is that it has to do with embodiment, because then it's like the distance between the human ego, mind, personality, and these experiences are, the more you embody, it's like the less extreme those two get. It gets more to a nowhere near a neutral point yet in the body, but more to it, like it
makes sense. It makes sense. Like, and I can't even recall the words you just said, but what I can feel is the energy, and what I got early on, what you were saying was that when you 0 point, whatever the polarities are, whenever that happens energetically within yourself, this is what I'm getting from it, is like, you would think when that happens that you feel like a star shining in the night with the resonance of the universe, but it's really an uncomfortable feeling to the human body. I'm just looking at my own scenario, like waking up this morning and going, what the hell am I doing here? Like, why is it like this? Why isn't it a constant expansion? We seem to be going up and down, and not that we're not ascending, but because where we're down now,
it's a bumpy road.
Yeah, it's a bumpy road. There you go. Yeah,
it definitely.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think like what I've been shown with this higher level of embodiment is that it also gets easier and easier to come into that surrender and allowing, that state of allowance, because it's like we understand more and more how little we know.
Yeah.
And yet the more we have sort of experience, the more we see that, okay, this did not, like I've experienced so many times for years now that things does not make sense at all. And then, 2 months down the road or a year down the road, or like now, for example, I have suddenly understood things they told me in channelings 3 or 4 years ago that I didn't understand at the time. And I'm like, oh my goodness, now I get what that was. And it's like, it makes it so evident that my human mind cannot understand it all. So I have to surrender and trust. And yes, my human has been fighting a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not
Well,
like it's super easy. I'm very honest about that, but that's that it gets easier. That's what I'm feeling.
I'm more inclined to feel that something I'm observing or even observing myself is more in alignment when that energy presenting itself, be it me or somebody else, says, I'm not okay. I don't understand. I have no idea what the fuck's going on. Every time I think I do, the next moment I don't. I mean, it's this might sound like a little bit extreme and sound bad. It's not bad. I'm just saying that from what I'm feeling and seeing in myself, the level of alignment is in that, at that level of what? Vulnerability, transparency, honesty, whatever, than it is when I'm in that state of, oh, I got this figured out. I know what to do. And I could be right. And that person I'm observing could be right about certain things, but it's changing so fast. Just like you said, 3 or 4 years ago, you do a channel and you get it today. Well,
Yeah.
that ought to tell us something, I mean, seriously, I guess at the end of the day, oneness is oneness. We're in these human bodies. It's very challenging not to see a division or separation, even if you have the best intentions, because you're there and I'm here. But the bottom line is we're all actually the same thing, and we're all really conduits. We don't own anything. We're not that smart. The brains went around evenly to everybody, and we pull from it and we share it, and that's really it. So,
Exactly. It's like, for example, like one of the groups I'm channeling are these blue beings, and I had first, I think, like 2.5 years ago, when I suddenly, the first time, that I heard something clairaudiently. It was like a voice behind me. I heard it like as if it was a human voice. I was, cooking dinner, and suddenly I heard this one sentence behind me, and I was turning around because I was home alone. So it was like, what was that? And I just wrote down the sentence because it didn't make sense to me. It was a complete sentence, like the sentence in and of itself made sense, but I didn't have any context and I didn't understand what it meant. So I started having this paper just on the kitchen table, because it started happening like, twice, 3 times a week, that I would hear a sentence and I couldn't make sense of it. So I just wrote that sentence down when I heard it, and then I left it. Then one of these sentences, and nothing is a coincidence, right? But it was amazing because a couple of weeks ago I found this paper because I was looking for a specific channeling that they, told me to have a look at, that was old, that I have written down. And I was looking through all these papers with channelings and stuff and light codes and all this. And then suddenly I found this like one paper that was like, a sentence here and a sentence there, and just like, and I was like, oh my goodness, these are like these sentences that came through. And I looked at them, and now they make sense. And one of them they said the blue light is a healing device.
The blue light is a healing device.
Yeah. And at that time I was like, and can you guys tell me something more? Like what? Like,
that's not how it works.
Exactly. And then I had 3 months later, I saw these 8 blue beings physically in front of me in the forest. Suddenly, as my eyes closed, I was just grounding just as I started walking into the forest, and I was, so in tune with the nature. And I opened my eyes, and then there were like these 8 blue beings in front of me.
Ooh, wow. Okay, hang on a second. Will you remember this? Will you remember the story if I stop you here and ask you a couple of questions?
Of course.
Okay, so you, first of all, you channel several different aspects, it sounds like. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this voice was the first aspect or aspects that you heard, and they're blue beings, right?
Yeah, I heard 1 year before that.
Okay.
There was one, they came through, and I later recognized the frequency.
Okay.
Then they said it was a high vibrational healing frequency that was coming through. But now I know that was the blue beings.
Yeah.
But at that time, they didn't tell me that.
So yeah, I mean, I've seen blue beings before. I've heard a lot of people talk about blue beings in different ways, but blue seems to be, if you just take it on as a let's just say a representation of all those things people refer to, it seems to be a big part of people's experience when you look at it as a whole. Yeah. So these beings so you go into the forest, you open your eyes, and there's, how many were there? What happened?
8.
8. What did they look like? Were they translucent or physical?
They were, in the beginning, like I couldn't see completely through them, but it was like a blue light, but it was dense enough to not see fully through. And then it got more and more translucent. Okay. Because it was like you couldn't miss it, sort of.
Yeah.
And then I felt like a magnetic, like I saw this wave coming into my third eye from one of them, and it felt like it was magnetic, like it was like glued to it.
Right.
So I was standing there, and I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? What is happening? And I was like starting counting them, because they were like in a half circle around me, like a bit, like I think the closest was maybe like 5-6 meters in front of me, and then they were just in a half circle. And then eventually, I have no idea how long that lasted.
Did they have a specific message? Did you recognize them as family? I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, that's the thing, because then when was it? They said, I think it was a few months, no, almost a year. Now I had to think. No, a few months afterwards, they told me in a channeling. That's when they started to come in quite frequently, and they started teaching me about the frequency of fear, codependency, surrender, and all. And then they started really pushing me to get the messages out. And that was, some months before everything started happening last year. So it was end of 2009.
Okay, I got you. Because I remember when I first ran into you, you were just being told, or well, you'd been told you were just coming out.
Yeah.
And I remember that.
Yeah, so I had been fighting it for a couple of years, but then when the blue beings started pushing, it was like there wasn't any way out of it, because I've been fighting a lot. until
we
I
are.
finally learned to surrender.
I think we all are. And it's really an interesting mix too, because there's so many parts of us involved. We got these parts coming in all different ways for, different ways for people. It's I guess all
Yeah.
the same thing. There's a communication or code or something's coming through here, meaning, out there. And then there's all these parts of us as humans, the body and the memory of emotions and traumas and all these parts of us, and they all have voices too, just like all these out here have voices. And it's really kind of a humbling proposition, because
Very.
as much as our, let's just say, supernatural higher senses and connections to galactic, angelic, and all that, as much as those are prominent, there's also all these pieces of us that it seems like have to be brought in and owned. And some of those are good and some of those are not good. Some of those we see in ourselves, and some of those we don't see in ourselves. We see in other people, and those are coming to us. So there's all this seeming complexity. And to your point at the top of the show, it's crazier and crazier, but at the same time, there's like this central point where things are just kind of, everything's okay. Maybe that's the removal of death as even a consideration. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. I had experience a few months ago where I saw, like, I was brought to the beach, and I was just walking there, and then there were like a few things happening and a few messages coming in as I was experiencing this, and then I saw my essence. And that was also a very, very humbling experience. And in that, I have never been afraid of death, because I've seen spirits since I was a child. So I know it's not the end. But I understood in that moment when I saw that, and I saw like how long I had been waiting to come in, because I was waiting until a certain point to drop in at this time. And like, it was just like I saw everything from that aspect, and I saw that essence. And I've been holding back my whole life, and especially this part, the last years, because I've been so afraid what people think of me, and like all this. It's been huge. And in that moment, I really understood that it's not about the fear of death, it's the fear of living.
The fear of being seen.
Yeah. Yes, to like really live and be who we are here. And there's really no point of being here if we aren't. Like that's what I understood and saw.
No, I totally. I've often, just bring it down to that, which is all we know is life. That's all we know. We don't know if we're actually, we don't know if when this physical body expires, it's all over and that's it. We don't know if we all go back to the one, and we don't know. All we know is to live. And there's something about, like, along the lines of what you're saying, is no matter what, having gratitude, for being alive. I mean, like I've had this, I don't know, I'm in this cycle. It's 7 days. Maybe it started at the eclipse on the 11th, and it's just this cycle of trying to, integrating, I don't know, grounding. There's all that stuff in the air, both from above and below. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And the days have been the same pretty much, which is, I do whatever I got to do as best I can do it, but I'm in this multi-dimensional contemplation. So which ends up turning into me laying on the couch or either laying on the couch or in bed, trying to go to sleep and being wide awake, but sleepy for 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, sounds familiar.
Yeah. And it's like, you almost go to bed and wake up bewildered. But my point is, I'm making it a point when I go to sleep you know, when I wake up, the first thing I'm doing is going, thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to see what's coming. And then you go out and deal with the multiple energies that present itself
Yeah.
during your day. Right.
That's really the best way to do it now, I think.
I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, to me, there's more, I have more resonance with I'm not okay, which doesn't mean I'm in bad shape. It just means when we say, somebody says, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm okay. I'm okay. I got it figured out. That can mean one thing and it could mean the other thing. You could actually be in a state of humility and like, I'm actually doing okay right now. There's always this unfinished business. And it just seems like that stuff's getting really loud. And we can't have anything hanging out there. And again, everything's changing so fast. So you tell me about these blue beings, and at least to start, like what are these channelings and these communions and connections like? Do you ever get into like questions and answers where you can say, hey, who are you? What's happening? Or is it all just coming to you?
For the most part, I go into like a light trance state, and it's like coming through, and I say, you know, what I want to say. Sometimes I ask questions, and they answer, you know, with what they think is important. If I ask something that is too much like my sort of mind, personality, ego kind of thing, like I've been thinking, you know, the last days that, oh, I really want to know this, and I'm writing it down, and, you know, I present them with that question, and they will just, you know, ignore it or say that, hey, we keep focus on what's important. That's not the bigger picture we need to focus on. So they are, they are quite firm in that sense, but they are mostly like, I have a Native American chief who I'm channeling, who has been with me since my birth. I remember sitting with him during my birth.
Really?
I left my body. Yeah.
What's his name?
I don't know. And that's so annoying. I really want to know. But I don't know. And I've been taken back to the life where I was his daughter several times. And that's like, when I channel him, that's much more personal.
Almost like a spirit guide. Yeah, I mean, like
yes, he is.
Yeah.
But the blue beings are much more about what's going on in the world now, and it's like when they come in more frequently, then I know it's intensifying in the collective. Then I've learned that since 2019.
Are they coming in more frequently now?
Yes.
Yeah.
They are.
Okay, this is interesting too. You know, one of the things that you know, there's free will, and evidently, and it feels that way to me, that like in this planet, on this planet, in this planetary experience, we have a lot more free will than in other free will planets. So you've got the free will thing going on. And then you have the guidance coming in, and in the middle of it, sovereignty. And I look at it and I find it very interesting. I think there's something coming to the surface here. How far do we take sovereignty? And what's the difference between free will and sovereignty? And where has the ego been in that space? And is it still at the level it was? And I guess what I'm trying to say is, how many of us question from our essence, from our humility, from our love, from our our wanting to serve, and all the virtues of the soul? How many of us are questioning the guidance? What is this guidance? Is it me? Is it is it something external to me? Is it an aspect of me? I guess, you know, theoretically everything is. Does it have an agenda? Does it have a specificity? Is it representing a part of me? Is it in the best, you know, in other words, we approach our, you know, as above below, as a below above. If we're expanding and we're doing this by creating loving boundaries, to thine own self be true, and doing the work that we're doing that's causing this expansion in our non-physical consciousness, let's put it that way, wouldn't the same thing apply to that which we receive? I mean, I don't know. I'm just, you know, along for the ride.
Yeah, and I think that's the best, you know, it's staying grounded.
Yeah.
And not just, you know, going with just anything, but also staying open and surrendering and knowing that the ego doesn't know it all.
Yeah.
And I was really battling with that in the beginning of the channeling, because like the first time I just suddenly was in a trance state and started making noises, and like I didn't know what was happening. So I never like tried to channel. It was just something that started happening. And in the beginning, I was like, yeah, but how can I know if this is actually channeling, that it's not my subconscious, that I'm not taken over, that I'm like, I would try to find all these, like, I was so fighting it and so trying to, like, how can I know that this is true? How can I know that, you know, and it was really a process of learning both to hold those energies and to be in the body and feel the difference of those frequencies.
Yeah.
And to like have it, you know, for me written down and or recorded, so I can go back, because that's really the way I've started, or I've gotten to the place where I know more how to interact with them. I understand the messages in a very different way, because I've been able to go back to it and see deeper layers of what they were talking about. And it's like, it's way beyond my mind. I couldn't have like, there's no way I would have the fantasy to find or to make those things up.
No, I got you. Do you feel to me very galactic? Like in talking to Franco and considering Morgan and people like that, I think it's like their first full incarnation here. Like they came for the last, that's what you feel like. Do you can you channel now? I mean, can you connect, or does it come into you without asking, like just whenever it wants to?
Yeah, it was like in the beginning I didn't have like any sort of control. I could be in the grocery store and my eyes would start flickering, and you know, my ex would just like, we're going out in the car because you're starting to channel. It just happened.
Thank
but
God
now
we
it's
didn't
like
start
I can
from
feel
your
it.
palms.
Yeah. And like, for example, going into light language, that's like just like switching languages. That's like, that comes immediately. And channeling, you know, the blue beings, like in English, I haven't done it in front of many people before, but it's not too difficult to, like, I do feel them. And what has been happening now, like you mentioned in the beginning, is because they told me at a point that we are 8 blue beings and you are number 9.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. I don't know why, but anything like with the 3, the 6, the 9, the 12. A lot of people say, I know I've had Arcturian, I think they said the mind of 9. I've heard a lot of people talk about the Council of 9. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
So
and then what happened, you know, a week and a half ago, suddenly, and I had just been meditating, and then I was just sitting here, and suddenly I heard, like a couple of days before, I had heard my energy field talking. And then I felt this energy just like moving around in my upper body, like suddenly out of nowhere. And then I just heard, I'm awake. And I had this excitement and this feeling. And I watched out of my eyes and I watched down my arms and I was like, oh my goodness, finally, you guys. And I saw those 8 blue beings and I felt it. It's like I can, just talking about, like, I feel that aspect in me. It's like there's so much excitement. It's like, yes, now, like, this is what I've been waiting for. I've been just like curling up in there, sleeping until now, but now it's go time. And
That's what you were talking about the other day on that, I think on the video. Okay.
Yes.
So, and for you, because some people say, oh, my higher self, I know I had an experience last weekend, and even to a little bit of a degree visual through I could see it in my hands. My light body came in, which I realized it had been in before or been awake before, like you're saying, but it kind of said, hey, I'm here now and I ain't going anywhere. Yeah. But yours sounds like that 9th member of that council of 9 that actually made the embodiment. And
yeah,
that's
and that
cool.
was a contractor. That was, of course, planned.
Yeah.
They're saying, and I guess that's right. So now it's like I can sometimes, like, if I'm, and it's not like, 2 very different aspects. Like, it feels like me. It doesn't feel like another aspect. It feels like me. So it's really like, it's just fascinating. I could look down at my left arm and I was like, oh, those 4, like, almost like, I don't know, like buttons or like 4 points on my left forearm. I was looking down and I'm like, oh, they're not there. Like, how strange is this? And like looking at my body in the mirror and like, this is super fascinating. And I can be walking on the street and it's like, oh my goodness, like humans are like, it looks so mechanical when we are walking, and like the fascination of all the joints and how we are moving our bodies. And, yesterday I was, feeling into this aspect. It was like, I can't wait to go with an airplane because that's so weird. Like, you guys are going on airplanes, It's like,
see, this is what I'm talking about with this thing. Like he was saying the other day, not that I'm saying that it's gospel truth, but I'm talking about the energy, the suggestion, the does it resonate? Does it sound right? Does it feel right? And that is, we're doing 200 years of a natural evolutionary process, though is an ascending type of consciousness. Like, there's no doubt that, like, say, since 2010, the internet exploded, all these communities exploded, the information's exploding, and we're taking it in faster and faster and expanding faster and faster. So you got to remember, what he was referring to in those 200 years of natural evolution is a very fast-paced 200 years. Yeah, we're doing this in a year and a half. So when I hear like what you're talking about that's happened with yourself, I know as the individual goes, so goes the collective. So I know that the same things happen to other people, will happen to other people, will happen to me. But I think what really stands out the most for me is that's the galactic. There's all bunch of whole other ones.
yes.
You know what I mean? It's like, but the galactic definitely to me feels like the closest aspect that's not, let's say, in this body, like the etheric body, emotional body, mental body, and so on and so on. The galactic feels like the closest part to us. Like there's an overall mission, which just say is to expand the soul and expand the universe. And then there's all these missions inside, but there's a mission within the mission that's really big, that's galactic. Yeah. And I think it has something to do with dropping ourselves into a body and embodying the part, embodying that multidimensionality. And I think that's a pretty.
And what I've been shown is like, this is the reason why it can happen so fast now. That has to do with the whole shifting of the grid now, of the energies that is coming out of the inner earth. So I, like, my information, like the main connections I have are in that realm are, of course, the blue beings. It's Native Americans, and it's Atlantis and Inner Earth. And one of these blue beings are in the Inner Earth. And that is connected. The information I receive from the Inner Earth is also connected to Atlantis consciousness. And that the energies coming up from the Inner Earth has to do with the shifting of the grid that is happening now. And I've been receiving mostly about Australia.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. I wanted to go into all this part because the Inner Earth has always been there. It's always been there for me. I don't understand it all, but the presence of the Inner Earth is bigger and bigger and bigger to me. And
it is.
And I know that so I think there's different representations, like to say as species of star family, a lot of hybrids, and there's different narratives and different lineages, but there's kind of a pattern that I've seen for myself and people like you, people that seem to be like kindred, and that is Inner Earth, blue beings, a lot of times Hopi, or it's some type of indigenous, and there seems to be something to that. Now you talk a lot about you've talked about, you just referred to the energy coming up from the Inner Earth, and then you've had a couple of videos where you talked in particular about Australia.
Yeah.
How do you explain that? I mean, what are you actually getting? What have you been receiving, and what does that information mean? What is it?
So first, 2 years ago, I had a channeling where it was a really strong, very grounded energy, and it said it was a mountain. And I was like, am I channeling a mountain? Like this, like when I read, because then I was in a really deep trance state. So when I read it afterwards, and listened to the recording, I was like, what is this? And they start, because then at that time I hadn't heard about Inner Earth. Because I've always been guided, like they always stop me from looking into things in order to stay as clear channel as possible. So some things, it's like an opening so I can look into things or read about it or listen to it. But specifically the things I will be channeling about, or I am channeling about, I get a very clear no. Not because it's anything bad about what other people say or anything, but it's because it sort of clutters my filter, right? And what I said then was that this consciousness, which then is connected to Atlantis as well, which is how I see it, is almost like pockets inside the Earth, which is of course another dimensional field, but
right.
The I get is like it looks like small pockets.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, they're right there. We just don't see them in the visible light spectrum. But yeah, I get what you're saying. It's
exactly, and it's many different types of beings.
Yeah.
There are elementals. There are different types of galactic beings. There are like I don't even know like all of them because I've seen them, but I have no idea where they're from. They are all types of colors and shapes and fur and no fur, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
But what I said was that there will be a time when it's almost like this energy which is held within the Earth is about to come up. It will happen, and that will cause the Earth to shake, which I have been told this is what we were talking about. This is the shaking of the Earth, what we're going through now, because
is that
everything
like
taken up.
Is that like right now, or like coming, or both?
It's what started in March last year and will continue until, what I've been told is that it will look different at different times, but 2024 is a marker of change. In the history of the planet is what I've been saying.
Yeah, Yeah, I listened to you and other people and like Franco's time, the 2023, 2024. I mean, yeah, that's and what's blowing my mind is because I can't like give you specifics. I mean, I'm just going off energy, like the energy that it feels like that's say late 2023 or 2024. It's so far out there.
Yeah.
Like it's mind blowing to me what's going to happen in the middle. So when you talk about energy coming up from the earth, like again, these are metaphors, they're energetic descriptions. I mean, I get it. Nobody knows exactly, but to me, I wouldn't be surprised. Well, first of all, I wouldn't be surprised to see anything at all. I mean, I could see spaceships landing with a bunch of clowns coming out and saying, haha, we played a joke on you, and whatever. But what I feel is that just like you were talking about at the top of the show, everything's getting crazy at one level, but at the other level, you're at the eye of the hurricane and you're walking around going, wow, this is pretty cool. What a beautiful world. And things are really, so the both are happening at the same time. And I think that's very possible. And I don't want to put anything out there, but like what we might call natural occurrences, a major climate situations, nature, being nature, volcanoes, whatever, fires, whatever. So like this really huge increase in natural phenomena. Let's just put it that way. But at the same time, there's this matching expansion of the divine human, right? Of the multidimensional human. So it's like, yeah, well, 10 years ago, if this would have happened, we would have been burned to death, or we would have been
exactly.
But
And
now, right? Yeah. You get what I'm saying.
Everything is so interconnected. And this is like, because to me first it was like, okay, this is the inner earth thing, and like the Atlantis thing, and then the galactic beings, and then the Native Americans, and then I've been shown Australia, and over time, and I've been like, why am I getting so many different types of things? And now it's all starting to come together. So it's like, it was in the end of December of 2020 they told me that in like 2-3 days the collective will start feeling the first sort of energies coming up from the inner earth. And it's very much the same as we have been talking for years about, there's like these incoming energies from the sun or from the cosmos, and it gets into our bodies and we're integrating and we are getting triggered and all of this. It's basically the same. It's just that the energy and the frequency is coming from the inner earth. It's also higher frequency. So what's happening now is that the energy is coming from both directions. And the inner earth, because the humans, what I've been shown is that the humans have not been in a place where we have been able to hold in our physical bodies this energy from the inner earth, because we have needed more like of a quiet grounding, in lack of a better word, from the earth in order to hold what's coming in. So we haven't been able to hold sort of the energies coming from both directions. But in the end of December, this started happening. It was starting to release. And what I've been seeing, like with the specific sort of team that I'm communicating with in the inner earth, is that I've been monitoring this energy for a very long time in order to know when they can start releasing it, so it doesn't cause too much disturbance.
So you're like a scientist on the earth, walking the earth. No, so in like, there's something to me anyway, and maybe other people are sensitive to other things, but I really feel what you're saying, that I feel like, I guess I would put it this way, that we spend, or I do, and I would think a lot of people are like this, although I know we're embodying things, we still look at kind of external. We say, hey, what's going on up there, guys? Like, so it's out there, but this thing with the inner earth is much more magnetic. It's
Yes.
much closer. It feels like this, it feels like there's a connection to what we might call the galactic, something that's out in the cosmos, but at the same time, it feels very kindred, very much like family, and very, very multi-represented. Like it's not just blue beans. It's not just, it's everything, right? Like
Yeah.
in the construct of the earth itself, which
true diversity.
Yeah.
It is. It's amazing, and it's so fascinating to see it and to feeling it. It's absolutely fascinating, and this is also what's starting to shift the grid.
Yeah.
Because this energy is coming up, and so the way I am shown the grid is almost like a spider web. So you have these node points and you have these threads in between, but it's of course not only one dimension, it's multidimensional.
Yeah.
But these nodes are moving because the energy is going to move differently on the earth, on the surface of the earth.
Wow.
And now that we are sort of getting activated, or we are receiving these energies from the inner earth and from the cosmos, we are getting sort of, we are vibrating starting to vibrate in a different way. And so this is what helps the grid to shift. And I also was shown a few weeks ago that also the animals will start moving because the lines on the earth will be different.
You mean moving, like migrating to a different location?
I was shown that I will move in a different way, that we will start to see animals going sort of a different direction than they have been walking before. That we can see them sort of.
I've seen some comments from people in the last 2 weeks. I don't want to get carried away, but like 2 comments where they said, and I've heard it before, but it meant something different. Maybe because I've been experiencing it too, and that's the animals are acting different.
Yeah.
I had a coyote basically walk up to me in Sedona.
Wow.
At 1:00 in the morning. I went face to face with a big owl in the middle of the night in Sedona when I was called out to the land. And then I had 12 wild pigs walk up to me, walk up to right beneath me where I was on the balcony on the second floor. And this all happened while I was in Sedona.
And this is fascinating because it's almost like we're becoming more magnetic to the animals because we are shifting in frequency. Yeah. Also, like I met a moose in the forest in the end of the winter, a huge moose. Yeah.
Good God, that's scary.
Yeah, I felt quite small until it turned around and went the other way.
But I would feel small around a moose. They're huge.
They are.
They're like 10 feet tall. They're huge. Plus those big antlers. Yeah, what happened?
No, it saw me and eventually it just it looked behind the trees and it turned around and it went another way. But I experienced this as well, that the animals are coming closer and closer.
Yeah.
There are animals just in the neighborhood that I find sleeping on my doormat on the outside of the door. When I come back when I've been out, and they're just randomly lying there sleeping, cats and even birds. Just
pretty soon you're going to be like Dr. Doolittle. So can you let me ask you this way. Do you want to, I know that your journey, and I know that you're one of many, particularly women, that have been getting information for a long time, and then we're told you need to get out there, didn't want to get out there. You pushed past it. So, you've done a great job over the last few months. Is there anything that you want to do? Do you want to do light language? Do you want to connect? I'm just throwing it out there. I have no expectations and I'm not attached, but I just feel like that the whole idea, at least here as I understand it, is to put this frequency out there. And I don't really know exactly how to do that, but to get y'all on here and just go with what comes intuitively. So whatever you want to do, if you want to do anything, it's up to you.
Yeah, we can do a little light language.
Okay. That sounds
good. And the blue beings they have filled the room.
Are they here? Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
they are.
cool. That would be very cool. Yeah, I can see this.
So I invite everyone listening to close their eyes if you're comfortable with it and open up to receive the frequencies that are coming. Breathing into the body, settling in. Yarataya kaya. Warataya rataya shirowayaka. Marataya maratawayaka. Jarko ayarat moy karati charakni arata moyaka yakana charakni morataya kaya karada. Marataya kana yarato ayaka charakni yaako amirti ana. Marata iwa charakni yaako ankana di charakni amota arati yakarati ni arataya. Marati anchu arakani arata ako arati yakati karadi ko ayaka. Reata ay amaya. Maka ay okaji arakni kan nerato. Kaya kaucho karikunya. Chirakawaya. Tuara chelaratnia kania kana cherakanaya. Cheraka. Ratnaya. Cheranaya. Into cheraka.
Wow. That was I don't know about everybody else, but that was interesting. That was very powerful. It was very powerful. I've heard a lot of light language, but I guess everything is relative to the person and to the space and time. But yeah, and I don't know if it was so much specifically you and the blue beans or what, but I think it's at a minimum it includes what's happening right now in that transmission, like what's going on, what's available, do you have like when that happens to you, do you have like any recollection as to what was being said, or does it even matter? It feels like it's doesn't even need to be explained. I mean,
Of course you ask that because it's the first time ever I've actually understood some of what has been coming through in light language. It felt different to me as well. It was because it felt like it was coming from within me, not only like channeled through me.
No, it felt like it was coming out and from you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Well, which is somehow or another like almost like a circuit's completed. But and again,
yeah. And
yeah.
Continue.
No, I was just going to say again, it's here now, but it's also as the individual goes, so goes the collective. So whatever you just demonstrated and said is basically part of the, it's another step. In other words, other people doing the same thing, probably at the same time. I mean, so this is the first time you've ever understood part of what was being said. What was being said?
So I normally I can see sometimes like light codes and I can feel things and I can see the colors or light codes like coming in and out of bodies and I can feel like the chakras where it's the most working on.
Right.
But now I understood like this. They said quite a lot about like they have. This is strange because it's so different now.
It's okay. It's okay.
Like the deepest gratitude for the souls. It was like, dear souls listening. Thank you for listening. Thank you for remembering. And it was a lot about remembrance. Remembrance of who you are. Remembrance of why you're here. And and like really talking to the soul aspect.
Yeah.
And so much gratitude for everyone listening and actually receiving it, because of the, like, we always have the choice whether we want to receive it or not, right? And it was so much gratitude, and I felt like more and more people opening up to receiving it. And throughout the transmission, and I felt this deep gratitude that so many are opening up and starting to remember, and they're also saying now that they have started this thing, those other eights.
That what?
to keep chatting while I'm talking.
Okay.
And they say that that some people might experience after this now to have certain like remembrances, or some things maybe that doesn't make sense. Like they're saying like don't hold on to it if you like suddenly see something or remember something or something in the body, or it's just a part of the whole remembrance.
You mean like this big unicorn standing right here?
Exactly.
You can't make this stuff up. Fascinating. That's fascinating.
It is.
And yeah. So today's June the 19th. I guess June 20th in the Southern Hemisphere, but it feels like, I don't know, like this feels like it's probably not just us. I mean, it feels very, very, I don't know how to explain it, but almost like you said something about a second ago, you said the soul's hearing it. Well, I guess the soul's always hearing it, but like what I just experienced with that and what I'm picking up from the field, the people is like the volume was turned up, or I would say it this way: the human was more conscious in a new way of the soul being conscious to what was being transmitted from the soul, and really,
exactly,
really the conduit, the channel. See, this is what I'm talking about. Nobody owns what you just put out. What you just put out was just in the moment, in the present, a spontaneous, you were clear. And the vortex created by all the people watching live and replay, because we know there's no linear timeline. I don't know. This is, to me, this is like the type of energy that I experienced at Soulogy Fest.
Oh, that must have been amazing.
Well, it was amazing. So it was like this community soul, basically. And it was like a circuit being completed. So I look at like what you were saying earlier. So let's say you have blue beings out here, a blue being in the inner earth. You're a blue being walking the earth. And we know this is not 3D looking, it's multidimensional. So there's all these that we can't even, and some kind of circuit was completed. And maybe this is representative of what we're doing. And it's like my friend in Sedona, Ty Hudnall, he says, you know, when you receive something, how does he put it? You know, you've received the code, I guess, or something like that, because it's immediately shareable. Right. So like this, maybe this is one of the things that's changing. We used to download, share, and then embody. And then, you know, I've been talking about now it's like I've realized that I'm downloading, embody, then share. But there's actually another part to it, which is when you're that open channel and you've lost all self to gain all things, that type of thing happens where it's the download, embody, share all at once kind of thing.
It is. And that's what makes it feel, I think, also more natural, like these sort of crazy experiences, because it feels, it's like it's, to put it into like a human vision, it's less distance between the aspects, like more is in the body, and it feels you don't need so much time to like it bypasses the mind more, or the mind
Yes.
has less
Yes. That's
grip.
right. That's what it is. That's what it is. And maybe the mind's quieted down. But the other thing that comes in, and again, I see this like that transmission is multidimensional.
Yeah.
It's not just the sound; it's actually all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I picked up on our brothers and sisters. You could see it in the numbers sustaining itself. You could see it in the field. You could see it in the comments, and then in my own feeling. And what that was is not only was the mind and again, this is a picture of what's happening everywhere, right? So not only is the old mind fading away, but there's also like a community experience in the individual experience. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like
Exactly. It's very interesting because yesterday I was releasing some fear, in my human.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this blue being very like present in me, and also the dragon aspect of me. And I asked, what is safety to this blue being aspect? And it says safety is community.
Safety is community.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my goodness, like I've never thought of it like that, but that's
wow. Yeah, if you just took that at face value at human terms, it wouldn't make any sense. But safety is community. I mean,
yeah,
safety is community. There's a lot in that. That's something That's something you got to sit with for a while. I mean, there's something to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So you're on YouTube. What's it called?
Heart of Light.
Heart of Light.
Yes, on YouTube and also Facebook. Same
on Facebook. Oh, you have a Heart of Light on Facebook too.
Yeah.
And so, and you do. I think you probably do at least a couple of videos a week, right? Your videos are about 20 minutes. They're what am I trying to say? I guess you come across like this. You're very human. Usually you spend three or 4 minutes kind of like getting relaxed and talking a little bit, and then you go into it, and it's informative. So it's really about 15 minutes of channeling, I think, and sharing, and the information I think is pretty good as far as real-time intel. So I appreciate you doing that. And
thank you.
You can find her at Heart of Light or directly. Do you do sessions for people? Do you do energy work?
Yeah, that's also something I was resisting for a long time. But I am, and I also been because they've been telling me for about a year, and I haven't until now lately started to work with light language on people. And that's also really powerful. And I've done a few like live meditations that I've channeled on the Facebook page with light language as well.
Wow.
It's powerful because it's bypassing the mind. So it's like putting you into a state sort of, and then I have no idea sort of what's coming through, but then it comes light language and some English to direct the focus. And
well, I thought it was very powerful. I enjoyed the hour and a half, and I look forward to collaborating. Yeah, I look forward to collaborating with you again and again and
Me
again.
too, really.
So
I really, really appreciate all the work you're doing. It's amazing, and your whole I've really noticed, since I think around end March, it's a difference in your whole presence, because it's like your presence are activating people. Like I see the frequency sort of pulsating out of you, and it's fascinating. And sometimes I can really feel it. I'm like, oh my goodness, there we go.
So I mean, well, I guess that's it. That there's something good that came out of all that deep diving. I mean, our work is not for nothing, right? So, but I love you. I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody out there. And thank you
Me
for, I thank you for, coming in, and we'll do it again. And keep up the good work. And you take care.
Thank you. You too. Love you too. And have a beautiful, beautiful day.